Looking back, I probably should have read the room better. But in my defense, when you're a biologist who suddenly gets the chance to show off Earth's wildlife to actual aliens, enthusiasm tends to override common sense. Plus, nobody thought to give me a manual on how not to terrify galactic diplomats. The whole thing started on what should have been a perfectly normal Tuesday morning. I was in my office at the university, writing a paper about spider venom that absolutely nobody was going to read, when my phone rang. Usually I ignore calls from unknown numbers, but this one had about 15 extra digits and a plus sign I'd never seen before. Dr. Jack Thompson speaking, I answered, trying to sound professional while simultaneously attempting to fish a dropped potato chip out from between my keyboard keys. Dr. Thompson, this is General Roberts from the United Nations Extraterrestrial Contact Division. There was a pause, probably for dramatic effect. We need your expertise for a matter of global importance. I dropped my potato chip retrieval mission immediately. Is this about the raccoons in the Pentagon dumpsters again? Because I already told you guys, they're evolving. It's only a matter of time before they crack the nuclear launch codes. What? No, the general sounded slightly concerned. We've made first contact with an advanced alien civilization. They're sending a diplomatic delegation to evaluate humanity for membership in their Galactic Federation, and we need Earth's top biologists to help showcase our planet's diversity. You want me to show aliens our wildlife? I tried to keep the maniacal glee out of my voice. I failed miserably. Yes, but please try to be diplomatic. The general's voice carried the weight of someone who'd read my published papers and was already regretting this decision. The delegation arrives tomorrow. Don't make us look bad. 24 hours later, I found myself standing in a pristine white conference room at the UN, wearing what I hoped was a professionally pressed suit, facing three of the most elegant alien beings I'd ever seen. Which, granted, wasn't saying much since they were also the only alien beings I'd ever seen. Ambassador Crix, the leader of the delegation, looked like what would happen if you crossed a praying mantis with a supermodel and then dipped the result in liquid moonlight. Their two assistants, Ven and Zor, were equally impressive, though slightly more iridescent. All three moved with the kind of grace that made human movement look like drunk toddlers trying to dance. Dr. Thompson, Ambassador Crix said, their voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. We are most pleased to meet Earth's foremost expert on biological diversity. I managed not to snort at foremost expert. I strongly suspected I was chosen because all the actually qualified scientists were busy, and I was the only one who answered their phone. The pleasure's all mine, I replied, trying to match their formal tone. I must say, your species' bioluminescence is fascinating. Is it chemically based like our fireflies? All three aliens tilted their heads in perfect synchronization. Fireflies, Ven asked. Are these some form of aerial combustion creatures? Oh, they're these amazing insects that produce light through a chemical reaction, I explained, warming to my subject. We have lots of bioluminescent species here on Earth. Wait until you see our deep-sea creatures. That's when I noticed the first sign of trouble. The aliens' natural glow flickered slightly, like someone had dimmed their internal light bulbs. Your planet has creatures that survive in the crushing depths of your oceans. Ambassador Crix's voice carried a new note of what I would later recognize as existential dread. Oh yeah, tons of them. Some are really beautiful, others look like something out of your worst nightmares. Speaking of which, would you like to hear about our parasitoid wasps? In hindsight, that's probably where everything started to go wrong. Please, Ambassador Crix said with impeccable politeness, though their glow had definitely dimmed another few notches. Tell us more about your world's biological diversity. I grabbed my tablet, pulled up my favorite presentation on Earth's most fascinating creatures, and grinned like a kid about to show off their best card trick. Well, let me start with this beauty right here. The general, watching from the back of the room, put his head in his hands. But it was too late. I was already hitting the play button on my high-definition video of a Tarantula Hawk Wasp in action. I've always believed that if you're going to traumatize someone, you might as well be thorough about it. Not that I was trying to traumatize our alien visitors, mind you. I was just really excited to share Earth's biological wonders with them. The fact that those wonders happened to include some of the most metal things nature ever cooked up was purely coincidental. This, I said, pointing to my crystal-clear footage of a Tarantula Hawk Wasp dragging a paralyzed spider, is one of my favorite examples of Earth's evolutionary arms race. The wasp hunts tarantulas, which are large, hairy spiders about the size of your hand. Ambassador Crix's assistants had shifted slightly closer together. Their bioluminescence was now running through a series of patterns that reminded me of a malfunctioning disco ball. The wasp stings the tarantula. I continued cheerfully, injecting a venom that paralyzes but doesn't kill it. Then it drags the spider back to its burrow, lays an egg on it, and buries it alive. When the egg hatches, the larva eats the still living spider from the inside out, saving the vital organs for last to keep its food fresh. This is. Comment on your world. Ambassador Crix's voice had risen about 2 octaves. Oh, this is nothing. Wait until you see what the ichneumon wasps do. Or the jewel wasps that turn cockroaches into mindless zombies. Nature is amazing. Ven made a sound like a squeaky toy being stepped on. Zor's antennae were twisted into what I could only assume was the alien equivalent of stress knitting. But surely, Ambassador Crix said, their voice now approaching frequencies only dogs could hear. These are rare exceptions, isolated incidents of evolutionary extremes. Rare? Nah, we've got thousands of species of parasitoid wasps. Some are so small they lay their eggs inside other insects' eggs. There's even one that parasitizes another parasitoid wasp that parasitizes another insect. We call that hyperparasitism. Isn't that cool? The general was now making frantic cutting motions across his throat. I assumed he wanted me to move on to something else. Unfortunately, my definition of something else probably didn't match his. But let's talk about some of our other fascinating creatures. Have you heard about our octopi? They're these incredibly intelligent mollusks that can solve puzzles, open jars, and even escape their tanks to snack on fish in nearby aquariums. Some species have venom that can kill you in minutes, and their beaks can crack shells and bones. The aliens were now huddled together in a glowing cluster of distress. Their colors had shifted from ethereal moonlight to something closer to a panic-stricken rainbow. Perhaps Ambassador Crix suggested weakly we could discuss your planet's plant life instead. Great idea. Let me tell you about the Darwin's sundew. It's this amazing carnivorous plant that catches insects with sticky tentacles and then slowly digests them alive. We've got lots of carnivorous plants here. Some can even catch small mammals and birds. The general was now actively walking toward the podium, probably to tackle me. But I was on a roll. And don't even get me started on our bacteria and viruses. Did you know we have microorganisms that can survive in volcanic vents, radioactive waste, and concentrated acid? Some bacteria can even survive in the vacuum of space. That's when Ambassador Crix's composure finally cracked. Their elegant form seemed to vibrate slightly, and their voice took on a note of barely contained hysteria. Your entire planet is a biological warfare experiment, they whispered. What? No. This is all perfectly natural, I tried to reassure them. Everything I've shown you evolved these traits through natural selection. Nobody designed them, they just happened. Somehow, this did not seem to comfort them. In fact, all 3 aliens were now glowing in patterns that probably translated to emergency exit now in their visual language. Wait, I haven't even gotten to the really interesting stuff yet, I called after them as they began backing toward the door. Did you know we have a box jellyfish whose venom is so painful that people who survive it sometimes beg to be killed? Or that we have ants that explode to defend their colonies? Hey, where are you going? I haven't even started on Australia. The general finally reached me and physically removed the tablet from my hands. But it was too late. Our alien visitors had already fled the room, leaving behind only a faint trail of distressed bioluminescence and what looked suspiciously like alien stress sweat on their chairs. Dr. Thompson, the general said with the kind of calm that suggests someone is counting to 10 very slowly in their head, "What part of diplomatic did you not understand?" I was just getting to the fun parts, I protested. I hadn't even mentioned the platypus yet. That's when the first reports started coming in about the alien ship breaking orbit at speeds that probably violated several laws of physics. In retrospect, maybe I should have started with the pandas. The next few hours were what military types like to call a rapidly evolving situation and what I like to call absolute chaos. The general had me confined to a conference room while various important people ran around trying to salvage humanity's first diplomatic contact with an advanced alien civilization. I spent the time productively by making a list of all the cool Earth creatures I hadn't gotten to show our visitors. Dr. Thompson, a harried-looking diplomat, said, sticking her head into my temporary prison, "We need you to draft an apology statement. Something that will convince the Galactic Federation that Earth isn't actually a death world populated by bloodthirsty monsters and they're even more bloodthirsty parasites." But that's exactly what Earth is, I pointed out helpfully. I mean, have you seen our deep ocean trenches? We've got blind fish down there that would give Lovecraft nightmares. Some of them are basically swimming digestive systems with teeth. She closed her eyes for a moment. Please just write something that doesn't mention any more horrifying creatures. Sure, I can do that. How about I focus on our cute animals, like quokkas or capybaras, or those little blue-ringed octopi that. The ones whose venom can kill a human in minutes. They're still cute, though. She left without responding, which I thought was a bit rude. But I dutifully sat down to write an apology letter that emphasized Earth's less murderous inhabitants. I was about halfway through a paragraph about dolphins when someone burst into the room with news that made everyone forget about my letter. The aliens had posted about us on their version of social media. Apparently, Ambassador Crix had composed a lengthy warning message while their ship was breaking every known law of physics trying to get away from Earth. The message, which had gone viral across the Galactic Information Network, included complete recordings of my presentation, along with helpful annotations about the implications of evolving on a planet where parasitoid wasps were considered normal. The reactions were not great. They're calling us what? I asked, peering at the hastily translated alien social media feeds. The Death Worlders, the intelligence analyst replied, scrolling through screens of alien text. Also the Nightmare Builders evolution's warning signal, and this one's harder to translate, but it seems to be something like those who smile while describing horror. That last one's not bad, actually. Very poetic. Dr. Thompson, please focus. 3 different species have already filed formal protests about Earth being allowed anywhere near the galactic community. One of them is demanding we be quarantined for the safety of all non-horrifying life forms. But we haven't even done anything to them. We just showed them some neat bugs. You showed them creatures that paralyze their prey and lay eggs in them to be eaten alive from the inside out. Then you called it neat. Well, when you put it that way, that's when things got even worse. Someone had apparently decided to do their own research about Earth and discovered Australia. The resulting panic caused 3 minor diplomatic incidents, 2 interstellar trade embargoes, and what appeared to be the alien equivalent of a Change.org petition to have Earth officially classified as a Class X Death World. But wait, I protested, reading through the translations. They haven't even seen our really dangerous stuff yet. The box jellies, the inland taipans, the cone snails. Dr. Thompson, the analyst, said very slowly, please stop helping. I was about to explain how cone snails were actually fascinating examples of chemical evolution when another urgent message came through. Apparently, some alien scientist had gotten curious about our oceans and discovered the existence of giant squids. The resulting panic crashed their entire social media network. Look on the bright side, I suggested to the room of increasingly stressed officials. At least they haven't found out about our extremophile bacteria yet. You know, the ones that can survive in nuclear reactors. Everyone turned to stare at me. Oops, that's when the general came back in, looking like he'd aged about 10 years in the past few hours. Dr. Thompson, he said, how would you like to be Earth's first xenobiological defense consultant? Our what now? Well, it seems we've accidentally convinced the galaxy that we're the most terrifying species they've ever encountered. Might as well lean into it. I couldn't help but grin. Does this mean I get to make more presentations? The collective groan from everyone in the room probably could have been heard in orbit. If, there had been any alien ships left in orbit to hear it. Here's the thing about galactic social media: information travels fast, but misinformation travels faster. Within 24 hours of Ambassador Crix's panic-stricken warning message, Earth had become the hot topic across every alien communication channel. Unfortunately, their version of fact-checking appeared to consist largely of finding even more terrifying things about us to panic about. Dr. Thompson, my new assistant, said, scrolling through the latest translations, I think you should see this. I looked up from where I was composing a definitely not threatening information package about Earth's cutest predators. What now? Did they discover killer whales? Worse. They found human medical websites. I winced. Which ones? WebMD. Oh no, it turned out that alien medical researchers had started investigating human biology to better understand what kind of species could evolve alongside parasitoid wasps. What they found sent them into a whole new level of panic. According to this post my assistant read, they're particularly concerned about our ability to survive massive trauma. Apparently most species die if they lose a limb. The fact that we can just attach them back on is causing some distress. Wait until they find out about our regenerative abilities, I muttered, remembering how the liver can regrow itself. They already did. There's a whole thread about how we're basically organic terminators. Someone called us unkillable meat machines, and now it's trending. I probably shouldn't have been as pleased about that as I was. The situation got even more interesting when alien evolutionary biologists got involved. They'd started analyzing Earth's historical climate data and had come to some rather dramatic conclusions about humanity's development. They think we're an apex predator species that evolved through persistence hunting, my assistant explained. Well, they're not wrong. They're calling us sweating pursuit predators and endurance hunters. There's a lot of concern about how we can literally chase prey until it dies of exhaustion. I grinned. Wait until they find out about our throwing abilities. Please don't give them any more ideas. They're already terrified by the fact that we can break bones by just squeezing with our hands. The real tipping point came when some alien anthropologists discovered human cooking. The concept of deliberately applying heat to chemically alter our food apparently struck them as somewhere between brilliant and horrifying. The fact that we'd been doing it for millions of years, combined with our ability to eat almost anything, led to us being labeled as biological processing units with universal chemical resistance. Did you see the latest theory about us? I asked the general during one of our daily crisis meetings. Apparently we're now classified as Class 5 biological terror entities because we can digest things that would kill most species. Someone found out about our ability to eat spicy food and now they think we're immune to chemical weapons. The general sighed. Can you please focus on damage control instead of collecting alien panic posts? I am focusing on damage control. I've already drafted 3 different presentations about Earth's harmless animals. Look, here's one about pandas. The ones that can crush bamboo with their teeth. I'll make a new presentation, but it was too late. The galactic community had made up its mind about Earth and its terrifying inhabitants. Warning beacons started appearing at the edge of our solar system, broadcasting danger signals in every known alien language. Trade ships were rerouting their journeys to avoid coming anywhere near our planet. Someone had even created an alien version of a horror movie about Earth creatures, featuring a particularly dramatic reconstruction of my Tarantula Hawk Wasp presentation. I hear it's broken all their box office records, I told my assistant proudly. That's not a good thing, Dr. Thompson. Are you kidding? This is great. We're officially the scariest species in the known galaxy and we didn't even have to try. We just had to be ourselves. Is that really how you want humanity to be remembered? As the species that terrified an entire galactic civilization with our biology? I thought about it for a moment. Well, it's better than being remembered as the species that got wiped out because aliens thought we'd be easy to conquer. As it turned out, I had a point. But that's getting ahead of the story. The United Nations Security Council doesn't often hold emergency meetings about wasps, but I guess there's a first time for everything. I found myself sitting in front of a panel of the world's most powerful people, trying to explain how I'd accidentally turned humanity into the galaxy's boogeyman. Let me get this straight, said the Chinese representative, massaging his temples. You showed them our parasitic insects first, instead of, say, giant pandas. In my defense, I replied, giant pandas can bite through bamboo like it's cotton candy. Also, they're technically bears. I didn't think that would help our case. Surely there must be some way to convince them we're not monsters, the British representative suggested. What about dogs? Everyone loves dogs. Yeah, about that I pulled up a new slide on my tablet. They found out about wolves and how we basically engineered them into different shapes through selective breeding. Now they're calling us species sculptors and debating whether we qualify as some kind of biological superweapon. The room went quiet for a moment. On the bright side, I added helpfully, they're absolutely terrified of invading us now. Did you see their latest threat assessment? They ranked Earth as more dangerous than a supernova. Dr. Thompson, the American representative, said slowly, are you suggesting we use this misunderstanding to our advantage? All I'm saying is, if they're going to think we're scary anyway, we might as well work with it. I've already drafted a presentation about our beneficial parasites. Did you know we have tiny mites living in our eyelashes? The aliens are going to love that. No more presentations, everyone shouted in unison. But it was becoming clear that we needed some kind of diplomatic response. The galaxy was watching Earth with a mixture of horror and fascination, like someone watching a nature documentary about particularly venomous snakes. We needed to find a way to seem less threatening while also ensuring nobody got any funny ideas about trying to contain the dangerous Earth species. That's when I had what I thought was a brilliant idea. What if we invite them to a zoo? The silence in the room was deafening. Hear me out, I continued. We show them that we can safely contain and coexist with all these creatures they're terrified of. It proves we're not just murderous deathworlders, we're responsible murderous deathworlders. Dr. Thompson, the French representative, said carefully, "Are you suggesting we demonstrate our superiority by showing aliens that we keep apex predators as attractions?" Well, when you put it that way, it does sound a bit terrifying. I was going to say metal, but sure. Let's go with terrifying. Meanwhile, the galactic community had moved from panic to something approaching morbid curiosity. Our warning beacons had become tourist attractions, with alien ships making careful passes just close enough to scan our planet before fleeing at faster than light speeds. Some particularly brave xenobiologists had even started requesting samples of Earth life forms, though they insisted on handling them through remote-controlled robots. "They want to study our tardigrades," my assistant reported one morning. Apparently, the idea of microscopic creatures that can survive in space has created a whole new category of nightmares for them. "Did you tell them about the immortal jellyfish yet?" I've been specifically instructed not to tell them about any more immortal creatures. The UN eventually decided on a diplomatic approach that could be summarized as polite but prehistoric. We would emphasize humanity's peaceful intentions while casually reminding everyone that we evolved on a planet where everything was trying to kill everything else, and we came out on top. "It's like being the quiet kid in class who everyone knows does of fighting," I explained to the general. "We don't want to hurt anyone, but nobody's going to start trouble either." "Dr. Thompson," he replied, "has anyone ever told you that you have a very concerning way of looking at things?" "Actually, yes. Usually right before they give me a research grant." As it turned out, our new diplomatic strategy would soon be put to the test. But not in the way anyone expected. They say that every cloud has a silver lining. In our case, the silver lining to terrifying an entire galactic civilization came in a form nobody expected: space pirates. It started about 3 months after the Tarantula Hawk incident. Earth had settled into its new role as the galaxy's equivalent of that house on the street that everyone whispers about, when we detected an unknown alien fleet approaching the outer solar system. "Pirates?" I asked, looking at the briefing documents. "We have space pirates now? That's so cool." Dr. Thompson, the general, said wearily, "This is a serious situation. They're not responding to hails, and our technology is centuries behind theirs." "Have they seen the warning beacons? They destroyed them." I grinned. "So they haven't heard about us then?" The pirate fleet was about halfway to Mars when they finally picked up our biological signals. From what we could tell through our monitoring systems, they appeared to be doing a standard scan for life forms, probably to assess us for potential slavery or colonization. That's when things got interesting. The first ship that got detailed readings of Earth's biosphere suddenly broke formation. Then another. And another. Within minutes, the entire fleet had stopped dead in space. "They're accessing the Galactic Information Network," our analysts reported. "Specifically, they're looking up. Oh, they found Ambassador Crick's warning message." I couldn't help but feel a little proud. All of it, including your presentation about parasitoid wasps, and the follow-up posts about Australia, and the documentary about human persistence hunting, and, oh, they just found the deep-sea creature database. We watched on our screens as the pirate fleet executed what could only be described as a panic-driven U-turn. Apparently, the prospect of dealing with a planet full of sweating pursuit predators who coexisted with parasitic horrors and considered them fascinating was a bit much, even for hardened space pirates. "Should we tell them about the bullet ants?" I suggested. "You know, just to make sure they don't come back." "That won't be necessary," the general replied, watching the pirates flee at speeds that probably violated several laws of physics. "I think they got the message." Word of the incident spread quickly through galactic channels. Earth's reputation evolved from terrifying death world to terrifying death world you definitely don't want to mess with. We started getting messages from other civilizations that had been having pirate problems, asking for advice about biological deterrent strategies. See, I told the UN Security Council during our follow-up meeting. Everything worked out fine. We've gone from galactic pariahs to galactic protectors, all thanks to wasps. Dr. Thompson, the Secretary General, said slowly, "Are you suggesting we weaponize our planet's reputation for harboring biological horrors?" Weaponize is such a strong word. I prefer strategically leverage our natural advantages. Besides, it's not like we're actually threatening anyone. We're just letting them draw their own conclusions about a planet where wasps that turn other insects into zombies are considered normal. And so, humanity found its place in the galactic community. We became known as the species you definitely don't want to mess with, but who are surprisingly nice, as long as you don't mind their unsettling enthusiasm for creatures that should not exist. Our reputation as the galaxy's scariest species actually made us excellent peacekeepers, turns out. Nobody wants to start trouble when the mediators evolved alongside Australian wildlife. As for me, well, I got to keep my new job title. These days I spend most of my time preparing what I like to call educational materials about Earth's wildlife for any alien civilization that might be getting ideas about causing trouble. Did you know that some species of ants can form living rafts to survive floods? The aliens love hearing about that one. Just last week, I got to give a presentation about honeybees to a delegation of alien diplomats. You should have seen their faces when I explained how bees communicate through dance, sacrifice themselves by exploding their own bodies to defend their hive, and can cook invading hornets alive by forming a ball around them and vibrating until the temperature rises to lethal levels. They signed the peace treaty in record time. Sometimes I think about Ambassador Crix and their team, wondering what they're up to now. I heard they got promoted for identifying a Class X biological terror world before it could infiltrate galactic society. I suppose I should thank them after all. They're the ones who helped us find our niche in the galactic community. Though I still wish I'd gotten to tell them about the platypus.